been quite a while since we have talked about Chris Cuomo. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C. When Chrissy first joined News Nation last fall, which by the way, I saw a headline earlier this afternoon that was celebrating Chris Cuomo's 1-year anniversary at the network. It was an extravagant affair with all the other unknown and irrelevant anchors at News Nation celebrating Chris Cuomo's first year of huge embarrassing failure. My inside sources tell me Chrissy C. He was feeling a bit dejected at this celebration of failure. When they were organizing the party, there was one name at the top of Chrissy's invite list. There was one man that he wanted at his party more than any other man. His former partner in the butt bongo, Donnie and his lemons. It has been 2 years now since Chris has tasted Don's special lemonade. Unfortunately, though, Donnie was unable to make the celebration. Much like the rest of America, Don Lemon has forgotten who Chris Cuomo is. What a fall from grace for Chris Cuomo. If this dude wasn't so detestable, I would actually feel bad for him. Chris Cuomo, he went from being the #1 cable news host in prime time to being fired by CNN, a network that is desperate for star power. You know your network lacks mainstream recognition when the biggest star at your network is Wolf Blitzer. Woof, woof. Well, KC, what about Caitlin Collins? Katie Rue? Katie Rue's not a star. CNN didn't hire her to draw ratings. The only expectation for Rue is to keep that seat warm until CNN can find someone else willing to work at this dump. But anyway, Chris Cuomo, he went from being #1 in primetime cable news. He went from his name being constantly mentioned in the media. He went from the pinnacle of cable news to being fired by a network that is sinking faster than the Lizzo on a deflated life raft and rebranding himself as a free agent. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C, the biggest free agent in TV. For months, Chris Cuomo, he was waiting for his phone to ring. He was waiting for a major media conglomerate to give him an offer. He would get on social media during this time, desperately sending his woke mating calls. You guys remember all those pictures where Chris Cuomo would post a shirtless selfie with a big stiff cigar placed firmly in his facial orifice? Finally, though, News Nation gave him a call, offered him a 7-figure contract to draw ratings in the low 6 figures. That's what Chris Cuomo calls return on investment. For the past year, Chris Cuomo, he has promoted himself as being anti-establishment. He claims that he is no longer part of the mainstream media, which, to be perfectly fair, Chris Cuomo is kind of right here. He is no longer part of the mainstream media. Hell, working at News Nation, I don't even know if we can say that Chris Cuomo is part of the media. If you watch his show, and judging by the ratings, none of you are, but if you watch his show, Chris Cuomo, he frames this narrative that he is all about giving viewers the truth. Watch Chris Cuomo to get real journalism that you're not getting from the mainstream media. That's interesting. Let me get this straight here. For 12 months, Chris Cuomo has claimed to be different. He has claimed to not be a part of the agenda that is being promoted by the mainstream media. Okay, let me ask you something. Over the past week, maybe even 2 weeks, who has the mainstream media been relentlessly pushing in the Republican primaries? I'm talking both sides of the media here, from Fox News to MSNBC and CNN. Who have they fallen in love with? Who are they fawning over like she's the second coming of Hillary Clinton? Nick Haley. From the shitfuck side of the media, I can understand why they like Nikki Haley. I mean, she's on their side. Just because she has an R by her name, that does not mean that Nikki Haley's not worshiping on Sunday morning at Woke United Methodist. In my opinion, Nick Haley is the worst kind of parishioner. On some level, I can kind of have a little bit of respect for someone like Joy Reid because Joy Reid is willing to tell me exactly who she is, while Nikki Haley disguises her true agenda under the guise of being a conservative. It is abundantly clear at this point that the mainstream media, they want Nikki Haley to win the Republican nomination. Now, it's never going to happen, but that's what they want. Now, keep that in mind as I show you this segment with Chris Cuomo, the guy who claims to be different, the dude who claims that he's not pushing the same agenda that the mainstream media is. Last night, Vivek Ramaswamy, he was the guest on whatever the fuck this show was called. Now, why did Vivek Ramaswamy agree to an interview with Chris Cuomo? Hell if I know. I wish I could tell you. Maybe he wanted a break. Maybe he needed a night off from speaking to millions of people on popular podcast and YouTube channels. So he agrees to speak with Chris Cuomo, knowing only a few dozen people would actually see this interview. Now, what is the first question that the new and improved Chris Cuomo asked Vivek Ramaswamy? What is the first question that he asked to prove that he's different from the establishment media? He asked Vivek Ramaswamy, "Why do you keep going after Nikki Haley? Nick is my friend. We play Battleship together, wishing that we were strategizing for a real war." Look, I am not a media professional, meaning I'm not a shitfuck. I've never conducted a live interview with someone. I have zero experience working in the media. But if I were interviewing Vivek Ramaswamy, you want to know the first thing I would ask him? I would say, hey dude, let's just be real here. It's unlikely that you are going to beat Donald Trump in this primary. Are you interested in being his vice president? Now, of course, we don't get questions like that from the super journalist Chris Cuomo. Instead, he presses Vivek Ramaswamy on being a meanie to Nikki Haley. Watch for yourself.
Why do you keep going at Nikki Haley?
Chris, I don't know what you've been smoking, man. You and the rest of the mainstream media. It's laughable. Nikki Haley's been going after me the whole campaign. First debate, second debate. You know, she's been trailing me for much of the time, but I realize the establishment media has realized that there's a puppet they want to put up. I'm not playing that game. The grassroots of this country know they want a leader who isn't going to send us, our sons and daughters, to go die in foreign wars that racked up $7 trillion in debt. Problem is the Democratic establishment media is now rooting for war, too.
You know that I'm not pitching anything about
Chris,
Nikki Haley.
What are you talking
about? She won't even come on my show.
There's no tapestry.
She won't even come on my show.
Tapestry
what are you talking about, Pepe?
I'm sure she doesn't.
Second. Oh, this is what the media is doing, is putting up Nikki Haley against me because they know I'm the real deal. Please. She hasn't even been on my show. I'm just watching you get slapped around by her, and I'm wondering what your strategy is.
The fact of the matter is, Chris, my strategy is calling out the mainstream media like I did to Kristen Welker at the start of that debate. I asked her about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Just like I'll tell you, you're part of the mainstream media despite pretending like you're not. Look the audience in the eye and tell them how you covered for your brother for all that happened.
I'm part of the mainstream media.
Like I told you guys the other day, Vivek Ramaswamy, he has got the establishment shook. They're afraid of this dude. And the reason they're afraid of him, Vivek Ramaswamy is a disruptor who represents change. First of all, just like Nick Haley did during the debate last week, Chris Cuomo, he tried to borrow the strategy of deflection from Hillary Clinton. Vivek Ramaswamy accused him of being a shill for Nikki Haley. Chris Cuomo defended himself by saying, "We're not friends. She wouldn't even appear on my show." No shit. No one appears on this show. I'm actually surprised that Vivek Ramaswamy did. But that is one thing about Vivek Ramaswamy that I respect. He is not afraid to talk to anyone. Seriously though, why would Nikki Haley agree to appear on News Nation? This network is a dump. Why would she agree to appear here when she is sharing a bed with Fox News? All she's got to do is roll over and Fox News will give her a platform that reaches millions of people. It takes Chris Cuomo 2 weeks to reach 1 million viewers. So it is a complete waste of time for Nikki Haley to appear on this show. Chris Cuomo also claimed that Vivek Ramaswamy was being slapped around by Nikki Haley. Did we watch the same debate? Here we go again, with Chris Cuomo claiming that he is not pushing the mainstream agenda when he is pushing the mainstream agenda. Vivek Ramaswamy absolutely humiliated Nikki Haley last week in that debate, which is why the women on Fox News were accusing him of misogyny and sexism. A man can't speak to a woman like that, it's misogyny! No, it's politics. If Nikki Haley doesn't want to be verbally attacked by men, there is a simple solution to the problem. Do not put yourself in a man's place. Nikki Haley wants to criticize the male candidates, but as soon as they fire back, she wants to pull her woman card. Oh, I'm a damsel in distress. Yeah, that's not how it works. I don't remember conservative media calling Donald Trump a sexist when he was debating Hillary Clinton, so why is it suddenly different in conservative media with Nick Haley? You saw later in that clip when Vivek Ramaswamy was calling out Chris Cuomo over his brother that Chrissy C admitted to being part of the mainstream media. Couple of things here. Number one, This dude just spent the last year telling anyone who was willing to listen that he is not part of the mainstream media. He's not part of the establishment. All of a sudden, Vivek Ramaswamy presses him on his brother Andy Cuomo, and Chrissy claims that he's part of the mainstream media. So, which is it, Chrissy? Are you part of the mainstream? Are you part of the establishment? Or are you anti-establishment? Number 2, this statement is obviously blatantly false. I'm part of the mainstream media. No, you're not. Dude, you are working at News Nation. That would be like the hot dog vendor at the ballpark who is serving the supersized Franks claiming that he's part of the baseball team. Serving the fresh wiener, that does not make you a baseball player. Just like working at News Nation doesn't make Chris Cuomo a part of the mainstream media. Key word, mainstream. There is nothing mainstream about News Nation. The WNBA is doubling the size of this audience during their regular season. Your ratings are down 50% from your premiere episode last year. There ain't nothing mainstream about Chris Cuomo. The thing is, this could have worked. When News Nation hired Chris Cuomo, they claimed that he would eventually pull 1 million viewers a night to their network. Now, obviously, he ain't even close, but it could have worked if Chris Cuomo actually offered something different, if he kept his word and was anti-establishment. Now, I don't know if it would have, because Chris Cuomo's reputation was already tainted. Most normal people will never trust Chris Cuomo, but if he actually changed, if he actually became anti-establishment and offered something completely different than Fox News and CNN, over time, it might have worked. Instead, the Chris Cuomo that we see at News Nation, same dude that we saw on CNN. The only thing that's changed are the ratings and the paycheck, which both had declined dramatically. The good news for Chris Cuomo, he will probably always have a job at News Nation. They were averaging 45,000 viewers in primetime before he got there. He has tripled their primetime audience. I would imagine they're happy with the results. Bad news for Chris Cuomo, he doesn't want to be at News Nation. This was supposed to be the stepping stone for his next role in the mainstream media. The problem is, he doesn't have any impact on the mainstream. The only reason we are talking about Chris Cuomo today is because I saw Vivek Ramaswamy promote this interview on Twitter. If he didn't promote this, no one knows about it. Chris Cuomo's become that irrelevant. But give me your thoughts. Vivek Ramaswamy, he continues his trend of dominating his opponents by dominating Chris Cuomo on his own show. You know, I kind of feel bad for Chris Cuomo. This dude is 50, I think he's 53 years old, and Chris Cuomo has no idea who he is. He has no identity. And when you have no identity, it is impossible to be relatable because you're changing who you are to appease whoever is around you. I think it's one of the main reasons that Chris Cuomo is failing miserably at News Nation. Does he have a chance, though, to resurrect his media career? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate every one of you guys and your continued support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.